for a deeper look into what is happening in Somalia, let's bring in Dr. Hassan Hanenje, Director of the Horn International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you very much, Dr. Hanenje, for joining us. Now, Al-Shabaab has this time attacked a prison right in the capital, which is said to hold some of their imprisoned members. This is very near the presidential palace. Why do you think the group would dare stage such an attack?
First of all, they've been emboldened by recent success in the offensive they've been undertaking against government. And I think that has informed them to try and become even more audacious. Remember, it is important to understand that some of the most experienced fighters are actually in prison right now. Now, this was also going to serve as a good propaganda tool with regard to the viability and resilience of Al-Shabaab, especially in the wake of the kind of losses they had suffered last year, and in the wake of the new kind of successes they've been able to register in terms of undertaking extremely audacious attack against hard installations by the government.
Now, sporadic attacks by the Al-Shabaab keep happening, but do you think the concerted efforts to contain this terror group are bearing fruit?
It's been a mixed bag. A better part of last year, the Somali National Army was able to register a lot of success, especially in central states of Al-Shabaab and Kalmaduk in Somalia. And unfortunately, I think that success was not exactly consolidated. And I think to the extent that there's reduced financing when it comes to the mission, as well as support to the Somali government, it has created gaps that actually is exploiting. And so what we have seen with regard to the recent Al-Shabaab attack is they are threatening to actually reverse the gains that have been made in the better part of the last 20 years. And I think this is a worrying trend.
What do you think remains for Somalia's security assistance partners to do to help the nation keep up the fight against terror?
It is important that the international community and those who've been supporting especially counterterrorism efforts in Somalia re-engage in a way in which, for instance, they need to refinance AWSOM. Today, the mission there is in the gap of about $150 million or so, which they actually require to be able to proceed, following the absence of approval of continued funding by the United Nations, early in the year. Secondly, there is need to try and build institutions, especially political institutions, because this is also being exploited to delegitimize government in Mogadishu in ways that helps to swell the ranks of Al-Shabaab. And finally, it's going to be critical that, federal member states and the federal government are encouraged to coordinate, especially when it comes to efforts to contain not just Al-Shabaab, but also other related groups such as ISIS, as well as other extremist and Islamist groups in Somalia.
Well, Dr. Hanenje, thank you for those insights. We appreciate you speaking to us, Dr. Hassan Hanenje, for us. Now, we have on the phone our correspondent, Mohammed Kahie, who is joining us from Mogadishu. Mohammed, what's the latest on this Al-Shabaab attack on the prison in Mogadishu?
Well, Penina, after almost 5 hours of standoff between the Somali security forces and arms of Al-Shabaab, the operation at the Mogadishu prison facility where high-ranking terrorists were being held have been concluded. And according to police statement, more than seven militants who were part of this attack were neutralized, and 2 Somali police special forces also lost their lives in the attack. And in the meantime, there was a lot of roads which were reopened yesterday before the attack were now closed, and there was a difficulty by a lot of citizens going to work, which have found themselves, trapped in this area. And the government is saying that they're still trying to, investigate how these attackers gained access to this highly fortified area, which is near the presidential palace. Actually, they have used government-like camouflage car to gain access to this area, and the security agencies and the investigators are saying that they're trying to investigate what happened and bring the perpetrators back to book. And still the issue of security of Mogadishu, lifting, some roadblocks due to security issues being reviewed by the senior government security officials here in Mogadishu.
Mohammed, how much do we know so far about why this prison was targeted by this terror group?
Well, this, prison is a very, it's manned by the Somali Intelligence Agency, NISA, and it's home to one of the most notorious terrorists and very, very highly fortified area. And there's some reports that some of the inmates have escaped, and the government is trying to trace them. So being manned by the Somalia's National Intelligence Security Agency, and also the inmates who are mostly the wanted Al-Shabaab terrorists, is making them a target for the Al-Shabaab armed group to try to free some of their members inside this highly fortified prison.